Alright guys, this is a bit of an annoying one because it wanted to do the tablet so that it's sitting on the charger cable, really useful. I don't know why the orientation's so weird on this one. Don't know if we can flip that around. No, that's not it. Okay, we're stuck this way around. We'll just carry on. So I did say I'd try and do these every week at 10 o'clock, and I know here in Spain it's nearly 11, but let's call it UK 10 o'clock. But I've been thinking about what sort of content do we want to talk about, and at the moment I've got a few ideas for this week, but in the comments might be worth sort of saying, can we talk more about this and more about that, or less about this, so we can sort of set it up in a direction that we actually want to talk about. So I'll start off with reframing the mindset. This is something that I often do. This is why when I talk about, like, say you're having a bad day, I reset and then go in a different direction for tomorrow. I write today off completely. But one of the things I'm noticing I've got to admit, the work environment at the moment is probably the worst company I've been in. But to be fair to that company, there's a lot of people I know in different companies that are having the same sort of issues. There seems to be a lot of negative cultures, really bad cultures, work environments, etc. It does seem to be a bit of a trend, especially in my industry, because the industry was always notorious for it, but it does seem a lot worse lately. So you can become fixated on the problems rather than what's the solutions, because let's face it, if you're working with people that are complete a-holes or whatever, you're not going to change them. That's them. They may be lacking empathy, lacking abilities, competencies, love having that negative culture, like talking behind each other's backs, etc. Because it can give them some control. You know, the sort of people that may go running to their boss every 5 minutes to say, you did this or you did that, and then you're going, what the hell are they talking about? You're not going to change that mindset. Sometimes there's two sort of things you can do. Firstly is change jobs. Well, it's more than two. Change jobs. The other one is sort of distance yourself as much as possible. So that's what I do. I distance myself. I try and keep everything as contractual and very not stone-walled, but you try and keep a distance because of the way they are, either just not being good, or you can try and change the culture, but it depends where you sit in the business, because some people think you can just change the culture through dictation or whatever, and then you're sitting there going, but have you been trying this for years and it's not changed? Yeah, well, all you're doing is going through the motions in the hope that, oh well, I've tried, that's enough. But in reality, it's a difficult thing to change unless you actually force that change. You know, you start putting people on performance reviews, you start forcing transparency, you start dragging people in for meetings about their actions and things they've said and things they've done, and try and make it so that they understand, it's not about a witch hunt and trying to destroy people and break them or whatever. It's about actually just saying, if you're going to say something to it, say it to the face. If you can't say it to the face, you don't need to say it. It's simple things like that, because we seem to be in this weird world where people talk about being offended, and at the same time could be some of the most narcissistic people on the planet that are saying they're offended. It's a really peculiar setup. So I've got to admit, from my perspective, I find what works best for me is actually to try and distance myself from a lot of the people that are problematic where possible. And if having to deal with them, keeping it all contractual. Even going in a meeting saying, it's all right if I record this, just so that, you know, you keep it structured in a way where you're 100% professional, It's not like there's no friendliness or whatever. Literally, you're not engaging in a negative way at all. Just avoiding it like the plague. So I mean that's what I'd call reframing the mindset, because you may go in there as your normal personality, try and do things right, try to be nice, try to be helpful, try to whatever, and then you start getting problems in there. So you might actually want to change the way you work. The same way if you're too formal, you might want to step it down a little bit, because you may find you get a better working relationship. I've experienced both simply because the company I'm at the moment is very difficult, but previously I've been in positions where I've had to restructure the businesses, and if I'm formal with everything, then I don't know what everybody else is doing, but it also means that the business isn't gelling, because people start worrying about the conversations that are going on. People start thinking, why are you asking me? And become defensive, may actually want to leave the business, etc. So it's a very hard balance to try and get it right, but it is something definitely worth looking at, and looking at different angles and what's working and what's not working, because not everything works for everybody, and not everything works for every business. It is a mindset change, and you may need to adapt it and change it depending on who you're talking to. So yeah, that's reframing the mindset, which is the first topic today. The other one is change in direction, because when I look at where I am now, like I said, the industry's changing, but also I'm sitting there thinking, do you know what? Is this what I want to do for the next 10 years? And the answer is definitely no. So you've got to look at what you want to achieve and what direction you're in. As the saying goes, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different output, that's, what do you call it, it's madness. It's a definition of madness, because you're doing the same thing and expecting something else to change. So for me, I'm looking at changing directions. I'm looking at what I want to do next, and still working it out. Simply because we're in an environment that is changing quite rapidly around us all the time. So where, for example, doing the call centre, it was an easy win. Let's face it, open a call centre, sell stuff, bang, easy win. We're starting to see the rise of what they call AI, which I think is more around machine learning at the minute. We're starting to see the capabilities of the AI technology, because it's still very early on. So even for me, these are two other topics I've got down on the list, but I might as well blend it in here. So ChatGPT 4 I use quite a lot. It's very useful for writing articles, but even when it writes the articles, you still have to validate some of it, because the information it's got may actually be wrong. Also, it may not quote it correctly, and also it may sound like AI. But if you want to do articles for studying or quick emails that are more constructed in a certain way, ChatGPT is really good at that. And I think Bing and that, was it Copilot, I've got similar, very useful for it. But also for doing Excel and other bits and pieces is something I'm going to start using ChatGPT more for. I might do some more videos on that type of stuff, because I'm finding the productivity time with using ChatGPT can save me literally hours a day, simply because it's got access to a lot of resources. So, for example, doing a report on which is the best ISOs for a certain type of industry, it'll do it in seconds. It'll go off and find it and go, you want that one, with a breakdown and structure. Very useful for that type of stuff. Same as restructuring emails, because you may go, you did a really crap job, blah 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 blah, and then go ChatGPT, copy and paste it in the ChatGPT and say rephrase it in a professional and business manner, and it'll rewrite it in a way that's much more palatable to whoever you're sending it to. Not that I'm saying you get in the habit of writing aggressive emails, because it's not a good thing to do. Nikolai, hello. Oh, hang on, I've got to open the chat piece. Where is it? Hang on a second. It's not opening the chat. Oh, there we go. Live chats. Please tell me about Israel. No, it's nothing to do with me. To be fair, I don't get involved in that stuff at all. I'm not getting dragged into politics. Do I like ham? Yeah. Of course I like ham. I'm living in Spain. Spain. Love ham. We have actually a pork festival here, which I think is around February every year, where people have it on the beach. PB Hunters, good morning, Matt. Good morning, mate. Hope all's well. Yeah, so that was a ChatGPT piece. You live in Barcelona. Now I live in La Mata, which is on the coast, near Torrevieja. So I looked at the realities of the AI stuff, because the ChatGPT, I think, is a very narrow window at the minute. It does have ways of using it more through like a one-to-one basis. You feed it in information, it takes out information. You can connect it to other things through the API, but in reality it's one-dimensional. So what I'm trying to look at is, what can I get things to do that I don't need to be sitting there doing it for me. So I'm starting to branch that out towards AI assistance now, and looking in a different direction, because there's many other things that you can use AI technology for. You can get it organising your calendar, you can get it reviewing data, you can get it creating and structuring information. So for example, say you went to a meeting and you used it, take on a transcription, you could get it to summarize and even respond to things. So for example, it could understand questions that were raised in that, and it may be able to go find the answers and then just highlight them. So that the fact is, say you had a meeting and you needed to understand X, Y, Z, ideal conversation would be around, say, a college lecture, and you're requested to study X, Y, Z, it could gather the information automatically. So from an educational direction, that would be very, very practical and useful. From a business direction, I'm looking at different ways it can save me time in the work environment. So there's lots of opportunities in there for using AI assisting technology, and I think that's an area that has a lot of opportunity of development, because I don't think the AI arena there is fully developed. I think it's very, very light at the minute. I think there's a lot more we could be doing with it. So that's an area I'm looking at. Like I said, I want to change direction. I'm looking at different things. I'm looking at the ChatGPT more. I'm looking at the AI assistants more. I'm looking at Python as a language, because let's face it, I'm going to need to spend a bit of time learning Python, because I do think that's going to be one of the fundamental pieces I need for anything I develop off this. And it's not going to be a 5-minute fix. But one of the things I will say, with the technology moving faster, it doesn't mean you're going to miss out. So even if you think, well, the AI is going to take everything over, well, it can't, because it needs to understand what it's taking over. So there'll always be a depth of developing things for the AI environment. But what's the alternative if you don't get involved in it? You know, I sit and spend a lot of time on Excel sheets, but in reality, I've already thought of an idea for surveying that AI could make my job 10 times faster. It's not going to happen overnight, and the manual stuff would still involve somebody actually doing it, but it could do all the data side over time. It will take it a lot of time to learn, but I think I could get there. You know, a simple thing, just an example, knowing what colour a wall is or a floor. It may not be able to condition code it, because condition coding you may still have to do manually, because you're not going to get all the information in a photograph. But at the same time, taking a picture of a wall, a floor, a ceiling, and you just go 1 to 5 or A to D, you're not actually having to write down what the floor is, which room it is, etc., because that bit you could get an AI to actually start picking up, but your C code or B code or 1 code, you may be able to just go manually put 1 instead of going walls are green, blah blah blah, because eventually what you actually want it to do is it can tell it's green. It then goes and finds the right, I think it's Ren numbers for the color codes, so it actually knows what color painter is for per room. It's long way off from that technology yet at the minute, but it doesn't mean it won't get accelerated very quickly. Just check if there's any more comments. Bus Sofia to Barcelona. Not sure what the question is. So that's what I've been thinking about lately, and like I said, I'm just restructuring my own stuff here. So that's what I sort of on about changing direction, reframing the mindset. Another one is the work environment changing. I've got to admit, from what I'm seeing, it definitely is. It definitely is. I think the DEI thing has been pushed aggressively in every office environment. It's also impacting recruitment, because I do know that, would you call it racism the other way around, or you're not allowed to be racist as long as it's against whites. It's definitely been, should we call it genetically specific? Because it does seem genetically orientated and religions orientated. Because you are seeing, if you look at a lot of the businesses in the UK, you'll see a lot of women now heading up as CEOs, etc. And I've got to admit, the ones I've experienced at, well, one was at Kia and one was at Amy. It's not just that the women, their sexual orientation is with other women as well. It's like somebody's ticking their box. Now, are they good people as bosses or whatever? Well, the problem you've got is they weren't hired for that aspect. You'll get people argue say they were, but I've been in meetings, not with the current company, with other companies, where they're actually talking about there is too many people in upper management that are white males. So the social aspects are a bit odd, because when you look at it, a lot of the work, you know, we do is often away from home a lot. It's often long hours. It's not family friendly. It's not a job a lot of people would want to do full time or long term, because of the commitments to the actual business. And that's one of the things I'm doing at the moment with changing direction, is I'm actually looking at the fact is I've been full on with companies for a long time, and I'm now starting to see that got me to where I am now. I'm not going to grumble about it, because it given me a lot of opportunities, but is that all I want to be? Is that what my life is? Sorting out other people's problems, being tied to a desk to fix and work in companies, or is there more to it? And that's why I'm starting to drop that down a bit, where my commitments to learning and everything else, because that's the other thing is when you're in that environment, it does become a lifelong learning skill, because the competition used to be quite stiff. But I'll be honest with you, when you've got DEI, doesn't matter how good you are. I'll be pushed out simply because there's somebody with a different demographic that suits a tick in the box exercise. But well, in theory they would, but in reality, a lot of people don't like doing what I do. It's horrible. You need quite a expansive knowledge base, as well as doing the boring drudgery stuff, which a lot of people don't like doing. They want to be the CEO, they want to be in charge, but without actually involved in doing any work. Peter Poulter, I've never caught you on a live stream before. Do you plan on retiring in the Philippines? At the moment, don't really know what I'm going to do in retirement. The reason being is my kids are getting older, so a lot of the decisions I'm doing at the moment are influenced by the kids. The reason we moved to Spain was to get the kids in a European education environment, so that they did quite well on education wise. But also now we sort of settled here. We live next to the beach. The area seems to have low crime rate. People are generally friendly, nice. We don't seem to have much of a drug problem here. I mean, I've got to say that because where I go in the UK, I mean, it doesn't matter where it is, everywhere seems to have like a really, really bad drug problem. And I don't really see it too much in Spain. Don't get me wrong, where we are is where a lot of the drug smugglers come in, but the product isn't being sold here unless it's in large bulk things that head further into Europe and across into the UK, etc. So we don't really have too much problems for the kids. I mean, don't get me wrong, the salary rates in the area aren't great, but we'll see once they decide what they want to do for their future. Because quite simply, I think the area here is great for bringing kids up. Also, I think it's a great area for retirement. That's why the retirement age here, I think the average age is something like 65 or 68 for this area, which is nearly touching on the life expectancy of a lot of people. So, not sure where I'll be for retirement. That's if I retire ever, because I'm more likely to just find something else to do. Just asking because of the old videos when you lived here. Yeah, I love the Philippines. Yeah, for me, I want to go back, but the problem I've got at the minute, when I say go back for visits, because we've got property there. But the thing is, to go back even for a trip, you want to be away for a month. In the current work environment I'm in, you won't get a month out of work. But I'm looking at consulting, I'm looking at alternative ways of working, etc. I wouldn't say never, because it's likely I'll get to a point where I'll restructure everything. Because one of the things we've had in the last few years is, if we take the last 5-year window, we had that lovely COVID thing. We bought this house, renovated this house, recently bought a car, so I've had a lot of expensive tickets and a lot of disruption. We're now hopefully starting to ease into a bit of normality for everybody, but obviously what's going on with the influx of people from Africa and everything else that's going on in Europe, we're about to see some turmoil of some description as well. So it's difficult to see where you're going to be next year, because I look at the way America's changing, and what gets me is all the scaremongering stuff is sort of died down since the Trump election a bit. It's not completely gone, but the fact is that all the really bad stuff that people were saying about Trump has sort of died down. But ultimately, I can see that he will actually influence changes on the DEI and things like that in America. Will that ripple through to Europe? We'll see. The immigration piece, how is that going to be influenced? You know, what changes is actually going to happen in America? That's why even when people try and personally attack me about their dislike for Trump, I'm not pro or anti-Trump. For a start, I'm not American. I've got enough problems in Europe. I mean, I'm just glad I'm not Canadian. That's what the only thing I will say. Because they've still got, what, nearly a year before their elections, and Canada is a good example of the strains and problems that are influenced by blowing up your immigration without any accountability. Because Spain's doing the same at the minute. Spain's been talking about it needs X amount of millions of people. I sit and scratch my head because most of the people I know that are retired will quite happily continue working, doing stuff. They just want to do something else or do it part-time. I think the biggest cause of death to a lot of people is when they stop doing stuff, because it's all about your self-worth, it's all about you getting out of bed in the morning, it's all about your structure. Once you remove that, it can make life harder. So my view on it is you don't need all these people coming in. I think demographically countries can shrink. I don't think bringing in people randomly from other countries with low skill sets is any benefit to the economy or the population of any country. In fact, I think the UK has actually come out with statistics on how few of the people that have been an influx have actually benefited the economy. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be sways on that, and you know, even when people make these sweeping statements, I always take everything with a pinch of salt, because if you look at the underground in the UK and why a lot of people were brought into the UK, it was to do with recovering from World War II. So there was a lot of people that just weren't there anymore. They'd all been killed. So the reality is you need manufacturing, you need people in low skilled jobs, you need people running the railways that will stand around blowing whistles and whatever, and not a lot else going on. And I'm not knocking the job, I'm just saying there was a lot of these jobs that were menial, and a lot of them are gone. Automation has got rid of them. You look at a bin truck used to have 5 people on it. The one here in Spain, because they use the big wheelie bins, it's normally just got the driver, and like a crane just picks it up, empties it. So that's 4 people gone. There would have been 5 people before, and that's gone through everything. So where do you need all these unskilled people? BC Mamsy TV, hello. Hi Paul as well. So that's my dilemma, because it's not being anti-immigration, it's just the fact is, what are the people actually going to do? Because if they're not producing anything, then they're costing things. And why should you put the brunt of that on the majority of people? And you think, well, it's not the majority of people, it's, you know, people can pay a little bit more tax. It's not about the tax, it's about everything. It's the strain on the healthcare, it's the strain on the welfare systems, a strain on housing, all the funny things that are problematic. Because let's face it, if you look at Canada, as I said, they had a massive influx, and their cost of housing has gone through the roof. Now, I don't know about their welfare side, whatever, but I'm sure that'll all be under strain. They've also gone down the route of the carbon neutral and the net zero and all the other extra taxes that have been introduced, which are influencing the entire country and making everyone poorer. Because one of the things about governments is they love taxation. Taxation doesn't fix the problem, it just puts the pressure on people. So I don't think it's got any positive output. You know, because unless you're actually restructuring, developing people, creating new skills for them, creating new jobs for them, the new arrivals are also going to feel the brunt of it because people are frustrated. Um, these things aren't planned out properly. This is why the UK, they're filling up their hotels. So yeah, there's a lot of issues going on there, which I don't think are any benefit. But this sort of goes on from the reality of the instability that we're facing at the minute, just generally. So that's the answer to the question. Will I retire in the Philippines? At the moment, probably not. Will I go back regularly once I can find my feet on creating more of a space for myself, which I've done previously. Going back to consulting, there is always opportunities, because one of the things on surveying, engineering, and a lot of the facilities management type of stuff is there's always job opportunities, because the FM side is a very aggressive and negative environment. Surveying and engineering, there's been shortages since I was in school. There are industries people don't want to go into. So that's what I'm saying, looking at the consulting. But I took a few financial hits over the last few years, and we're starting to come out the other end of it, but I'm just waiting to see where all this change is going to die down. Next thing I put on my list was about investments, because I've been asked by a couple of people about investments and should they invest in things and what should they invest in. I'm always a bit wary on this, because I can say something and then it could collapse overnight, simply because I don't control any of these things, and this is why I always advise people to look themselves. So yeah, like I say, I invest in ISAs because it's quite an easy one. I use Vanguard. I put money in every month, and currently I've had the account a year and a half, and it's produced, I think it's 19.7% return on investment so far. So after 2 years, I'm expecting that it's probably going to average out at maybe 12% per year, which I don't think is too bad an investment, because I'm not doing anything with it. I'm literally just putting the money in. It's a managed account, and it just does it by itself. And I've got it on a direct debit, so I put a certain amount every month, and if I've got spare cash, I'll put some more money on it. So that's for me is the best option for me with the ISA. The rate of return on that is a lot better than what the banks offer. That's why I say shop around, because it's just the same amount of money. It's just who's paying you the most interest on it. But in the same way, you can have a stocks and investment fund in Vanguard and other places. Just be wary of the taxes. The UK tax system's not the best for that. That's why I recommend doing it within an ISA at the minute, simply because up to £20,000 a year in investments, tax free. Is it the same for other countries? I say you need to look at the legislation, because even the ISA bit, with the current Labour government, I could see if they stayed in power, which I'm not expecting long term, they would see that as people pay the state fund, state pension, your contributions into that, and then if you've got a big enough ISA fund, they give you none of the money you paid into the state one, so they can give it to people that never earned it. That's what I could see with the Labour government. I sort of look at it from two perspectives. Firstly, I use the ISA to a point where it's generating enough cash that I don't care what the government's doing, because I don't trust governments at the best of times. But ultimately, that fund is mine, so I've emptied it out. It's none of their business what I do with it. I've also got a private pension as well, but that's exactly it. They go, oh, you got ISAs, you got private pension. Oh, you don't need the state pension you paid into for over 30 years. They seem to forget whose money it was. Well, they don't care, let's face it. So I look at it from two perspectives. A, the state pension may be gone anyway. especially start flooding the country through people that are never going to pay into the system because it's already strained anyway. People are living longer as well, which is the other problem with it. So I don't sort of see the state pension being of benefit to me. If I'm relying on that state pension, I've failed in life. And I'm not knocking anybody that relies on the state pension. I'm saying from my perspective, putting all these investment things on in place and then still having to rely on it, I think I'm not done well. I do think I should get my state pension because I bloody paid for it, but I have very little faith in the government. The crypto markets, obviously there was a big rally after the Trump election. I do think having Elon Musk may influence things, but a lot of the stuff that's out there is currently hype. And hype, you get the markets do that, which is the whole point of crypto, to be fair. If it was a stable market, you'd be getting returns on investment like I got in the ISAs, which is like 10 to 12%. But in crypto, if you can get it when it's crashed, put money in, it goes back up, cash out then, let it drop again, buy it again. That's how you make money on that stuff. But I'm not going to give anybody advice on what cryptos and that to buy, because even when I told people before they need to make their own decisions, even one that was a Ponzi scheme, and I literally said it was a Ponzi scheme, people still invested in it, lost money, and suddenly it's my fault, even though I said don't invest in it. We all have to take our own ownerships, unfortunately. Gold and silver, I think, are worth looking at the minute. I haven't done too much on that, simply because I need to know it's physical gold and what the value is on it. You know, for example, if somebody is holding my gold, what are they charging me to hold it? Because is that going to outstrip the value of the gold itself? So I do recommend having a look at different things and be diverse. I mean, art's another option, but you need to know what you're doing. The same as things like my brothers and father used to do a lot in porcelain and stuff, and that market has dropped out a bit, but that may be an opportunity at some point because a lot of it's not getting made anymore. The point being is, all this stuff is about looking at the options available. It's like property. My big concern on property, especially UK, is the values have been inflated. Now, I've been talking about this since 2007, 2008 when the crash happened, because the whole point is there was money pumped in to try and keep the values of the house up, because that's debt. If it all collapses, your house that your mortgage was 200, 300,000, it collapses, you lose your house, you go bankrupt, the debt's written off. Takes you 10 years maybe to get a new house, but the new house would have been like 80,000 because the market had collapsed. You'd have ended up in a better situation by going bankrupt and losing it, although you would have had the heartache of losing the home, losing all your problems, maybe having to move back to the parents, whatever you had to do. Financially, you would have been in a better place. They did a lot to stop the collapse, which is why the houses are inflated. You're influxing the people into the country, so the rents are horrendous. You know, London, you're starting to get to the point where you're needing two people's income to pay your cost of rent, etc. The market that's an unsustainable point, because you start thinking, well, hang on a minute, do I actually need this? Do I actually want to do this? Am I better off moving somewhere else and having a different job and earning less and having a better quality of life? And that is going through a lot of people's minds. This is why they keep talking about trying to get everybody back in the office, as if, oh, people are less productive at home, people are this, blah, 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 blah. I've been in office environments for over 20 years, and some of the most unproductive people reside in those offices. And they're often the people in charge of the other people, because their whole concept, maybe around the fact of being in the office, is I'm seen, That's why it's important, not what their actual outputs are. Because most of my outputs, to be fair, are site based. Most of my site, if it's not on site, it's in spreadsheets. So it's not a case of me being in the office kissing the backside of a boss or somebody else is any benefit to me. I've got no interest in that. It just goes against the grain for me. Um, but this is my point. You start looking at the cost of living. Here we are in Spain. I think the average wage in this area is probably around €1,200. You'd struggle to live on that in the UK. Here, it's doable. You know, you can get an apartment rent for 300, 400 a month. Electrics, water, etc. Probably about another 200 a month. Food's relatively cheap. I mean, let's face it, Spain's a bit of a breadbasket of Europe. You know, so there's a lot of fresh produce, even fish. Santa Pola down the road is where the fishing fleet is. So the quality of life is much higher here on a lot less money. And a lot of people have woken up to that during the COVID period because they started reassessing their entire lives. Because you start thinking, hang on, it's like me going into London to work, right? Takes me 2.5 to 3 hours to drive in and 2.5 to 3 hours to drive back out. You say go on the train, it doesn't take, it's no quicker. It's the same. The difference with going in the car is I'm not carrying a backpack for those hours. The reality is people are rethinking their lifestyles, and companies may not be happy with it, but the big problem with people being isolated as well is, like I say, there's a lot of toxic work environments that may even have been there before, but people are more aware of it now because they've been out of it and come back into it. So mindsets have been shifted during the lockdown periods, etc. And I think this is why people start pushing the well-being, they're pushing this, you know. I've got to admit, when people start talking about meditation, I mean, meditation to me is quite simply just being based. It's like sitting in here, my focus on this podcast, my focus is talking to you guys, my focus is in this room. It's not thinking about, oh, can I afford the mortgage? Oh, the car's broken down. You know, the simplistic thing is being in this specific time and space. So even if you're sat here doing nothing, it's just being in that moment. Because I do think it does get stretched out a bit. I mean, if there's other people out there who want to talk about meditation, please feel free. The next one I want to talk about is Philippines is full of foreigners. It's funny, I was having a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago because they were talking about there's a lot more foreigners in the Philippines now. It's the same as, I think it's Legion of Men were talking about the fact that a lot of the women are waking up to the opportunities, you know, being more selective talk about scams and stuff. They've always been there. I mean, I was out in the Philippines for a long time, and the same trends were always there. It's the same as when people talk about a lot of these women are not quality women, etc., etc. Based on what? Normally, it's somebody who's had a bad relationship. It's normally, you know, with somebody they met in the Philippines and made some dumb assumptions. It's normally people that have never been to the Philippines and got some other business issues, or it's people that only see it from the perspective online, and it's only with a limited amount of information. Because we're spending time in the Philippines, there's certain things you see. There's a lot of guys that may have girls that are, I don't know, ex-bar girls or whatever, but that's one demographic. You get a lot of people where there's a lot of their partners worked in the IT park, or they work in different businesses, which are relationships that you would be similar to what you'd have in the West. They're structured. These women are self-sufficient. They're self-reliant, but they haven't been corrupted with excessive sexism, etc. So you end up with somebody who's very traditional, etc. But it also means they don't want a drunken bum or a violent bum as a husband. So you do see some of these patterns, and you start seeing, well, hang on, it's not actually the woman, it's the guy. The guy's a twat. That's it. In the same way, you will see some of the women that are scammers or whatever, and you can see them a mile away. But even when you tell people, don't marry the first woman you meet, spend a bit of time, learn about the environment, learn about the people, a lot of people jump straight into the first person they met online. But one of the things I would say about people that are always online is they're probably more likely to be a scammer if they're online all the time, because what else are they doing? Why are they online always? But it doesn't mean they all are, because I get some people are at home, but then they're going, have they got work ethic? What they're going to be like as a partner? Blah, blah, blah. So for me, I don't think the Philippines has changed that much. I know some other areas, I think Bali is one of them. There is a lot of women that seem more on the money than anything else. And I know Thailand could be a bit that way. But I'd also say it also depends, if you're looking for a partner, where you go, who you meet, who you're talking to, like anything else on the planet. What you need to do is be a bit more responsible for yourself. These are your actions, these are your responsibilities. Take your time. If you want to meet somebody long term, spend time. I mean, if you're retired, for example, what's the rush? When the Philippines, for example, a lot of people will go to Manila or Cebu. That's two places out of, well, it's not even the full islands that these places reside on. There's over 7,000 islands in the Philippines. You're not going to find everything on your doorstep all the time. I mean, I've got to admit, I like living in Minglanilla because A, it's in central Visayas, which means if I want to go elsewhere, the islands are around me. The port's not far from me, the airport's not far from me. I've got access to the whole of the Philippines on my doorstep. But I do recommend, if you're going out to the Philippines, is explore it. That's why I got my motorbike. That's why I like my motorbike in the Philippines. That's my bit of freedom. So I would say, as a foreigner in the Philippines, hey, don't go out there with a shopping list assuming to get married. I want to get married, I want to do this. Go out there and just enjoy being there. That's what I'd say. Just enjoy the environment. You don't have to get married straight away. You're not in a rush. It's not a game show or a TV show. But you will meet people more genuine by being there longer and then understanding the environment you're in more. So that's my best advice on that. But is the Philippines full of foreigners? I'd say the passport bro thing is probably been more of a stimulus in recent years. But I'd also say that the mail order bride stuff come from the 80s. I will also say that it's not just the West, because you'll see Koreans, Japanese, etc. are also trying to look for partners as well. So it's not such a narrow bandwidth anymore. But often I find the people I know from the Philippines are just genuine all round. They're not fixated on money. They're not fixated on the negative aspects of life. Because I think certainly in the UK I find it, people seem fixated on the negative stuff. This is why I haven't even talked about Starmer today, because I don't even want to talk about that guy. I've written him off. It's bad news. There's no point even talking about something there is no positive output on. But I find myself when I'm in the Philippines. It's chilled out. People are friendly. Um, I can walk around there at 3 o'clock in the morning and not have a worry in the world. Um, and people generally are quite happy to be around you, want to spend time around you. Um, and that's why I like the Philippines. Spain, it's it can be different, but it's like my wife's friend next door. She'll message my wife going, "Oh, I'm going to the supermarket. Do you want to come to the supermarket? Do you want to do this?" They're always doing stuff together. But here, we know so many people in this community. It's it's a chilled out environment, because bear in mind there's two aspects to this. The UK gets too busy because people, firstly, you probably know it's quite bright in here, but in the UK, I find I look out the window, it's grey. Nearly 90% of the time I look out the window, it's grey. People go at work, gets dark earlier, I find, unless it's the summer. So people are less motivated to do stuff because it's instantly, as soon as you finish work, it's calm down, day's finished, go and watch TV or something. Here in Spain, I find there's always something going on. There's a lot of fiestas, there's lots of events. Even in this small town I'm in, there is events throughout the year. I mean, we get things like a zombie invasion, boxcar racing for the kids, a children's bull run, which is with inflatable bulls where they're running around. You get all the religious festivals. You get the town's fiesta. Music events throughout the year with a stage and everything on the plaza. There is always activities going on. Philippines is the same, because obviously they're both Spanish in a sense. Obviously it's pulled through from Spain to the Philippines, though the religious aspects and a lot of the fiesta stuff, etc. But those positive vibes are in the community, because for a start, you meet people a lot more regular, because people are down at the plaza for the events. You bump into somebody, or your daughter goes to school with someone, and then you meet their parents because they're at the plaza, and now you've got new friends and all that sort of stuff. So it's very expansive. And the Philippines is the same. Every time you go somewhere, you meet new people and it expands out. UK, I find that's a lot more difficult these years. Well, it's just culturally very different. People seem a lot more frustrated, a lot more focused on monetary problems and political problems. Spain, they have similar problems on these aspects, but because they have other stuff, they do the other stuff. Because even going to the gym in the UK, I find people don't, be in a room with 100 people and hardly anybody talks to each other. It's all a bit peculiar for me. Yeah, I'll move on from that anyway. Move on from that. Another conversation I was having this week with Carlos was about the new Jaguar advert. I don't know if you've seen that. Now, the people in the advert, it's very Fashion Week style, and that's where I was chatting to my wife about it. I said, well, it would have made more sense if they'd actually sponsored a fashion event, because Jaguar is currently not manufacturing any cars at the moment. In fact, I think they're selling off all its stock, so the dealerships are emptying out. But they're going through a rebrand for next year, because they're going to go full electric. Now, there's two things on this. I think it's a bit peculiar the way they did the branding, because like I said, you're going, what's this about? It was very cliche. It was very Zoolander, focused on seemed to be focused gay, transgender, whereby the pink and everything else. So I'm not sure what their demographic is now, because it's definitely not what their original demographic is, which is the 40-plus-year-old high income. It seems like it's going to go for a completely different market. Is it likely to be successful or fail? I'm unsure. I think the marketing wouldn't have done it any favors. I can get it one again. I can get it's trying to change its brand, um, but I don't know why they didn't focus on things like technology and something of note, because it's got a negative backlash on this stuff. Because firstly, there was no car; it was just a rock, and secondly, it's got all. I mean, I don't even know if all the people in there were sort of from the LGBT community or whatever, or was it because I believe they all work for Jaguar. So they've got two problems here. If I worked there and was forced to dress like that, I wouldn't be happy. But if everybody in that office is LGBTQ and whatever, are we saying that everyone else needs to be replaced by these people that want to run everything in a very narcissistic way? We'll see. We'll see where it goes anyway. But I think this is where the bigger piece on this is people actually understanding if you're actually dictating change where you're going to replace anybody that doesn't fit your demographic and what you want, that's fascism. That's not a good place to be. If it's a case of it's just being symbolic, that's not really an issue. But I would say that the whole thing was a bit cliche and a bit not vulgar. I'd say confusing, because it didn't actually have any substance relating to a car. It was more like the Olympic piece where everyone's going, what's this about? But I'm not sure if people understand, because I try and look at it from different perspectives. If I was from an LGBT community, would I see that as amazing or something else? Because maybe I think differently. And then the next question is that community going to be the ones that buy all the new Jaguars? If the answers to those are yes, then obviously it's done well. But if it's actually put off people from buying a Jaguar because they think this is a big FU, like similar to what seemed to happen at the French Olympics, then I don't think that's going to have a positive impact for the brand. Weird one is, it sounds like the Jaguar boss was offended by it, by people's backlash. But this is what I'm saying, because of the way it was focused, what else would they be expecting? Because if you watch the Olympic stuff, you could understand what the backlash is, because people are going, what the hell's this got to do with the Olympics? And then they go and do it with a Jaguar car and don't even have a car. Because I get they could throw this out there and see what the responses are, because they're not selling cars, so it's not going to impact sales, because they have no sales, because they can't sell anything because they haven't even told anybody what they're buying. So it may be a trial thing, throw that out and see what the responses are. But it still doesn't envision me with a desire to buy a Jaguar. It's more a case of, if the brand's not sure what it is, why would I buy a Jag? Anyway, we'll see where that goes. I mean, my view is I think Jaguar is in a precarious environment anyway. If you look at what's going on with China, a lot of the car brands have been hammered over there at the minute, and China is a massive market. I think it's a Jeep in China has gone bankrupt. There is a massive shift in the car market, and one of the problems we've got in Europe, I think, is a lot of people are uncertain where to go next. I've got to admit, I haven't bought an electric, I haven't bought a hybrid. I bought a Aygo, 1 litre Aygo, small engine, and it's a Toyota, so it's reliable. Why don't I go hybrid? Why don't I go electric? Well, firstly, why would I want to pay double the cost of a car? But secondly, a lot of this stuff out there is still early generations. Yeah, fat drunk vlogs. Jaguar used to be looked at as one of the premier European cars. Now they're just crap. Yes, I mean, if you look at the Land Rover or the Range Rover, because they're all part of the same group, or used to be, I assume they still are. I think it's the most stolen car in the UK. It seems to be the easiest car to steal, and they're stolen a lot. And you've seen some massive insurance premiums on them. Um, so yeah, but to be fair, even I remember going back years, because it was an officer car, the Range Rover. Um, so even like early 90s, etc., there, late 80s, the Range Rover was like an officer thing in the military. Yet even then they were very unreliable. And I know from people that have owned Range Rovers, they seem to have spent as much time in the dealership as they have on the road, because there's always something going wrong with them. I also know two people that have had their Range Rover stolen, literally outside their houses. Um, so for me, it's not a brand I would want to buy. If it's A, it's that easy to steal, but B, if that many people want to steal it, yeah, they're prone to breaking down, 100%. Land Rover, Jaguar are prone to break down. Never buy second hand. Yeah, well, the old things are. I remember when I used to be in car parts a long time ago, because I used to be do the deliveries in the car. You know, when I was, I don't know, about, I was under 20 anyway. Um, but I was always astonished at how much their car parts cost. It just seemed massively inflated. Um, but yeah, I can see that brand struggling, but the whole market is changing. So I think one of the problems you've got now is a lot of these brands were relying on combustion engines and high investment in technology, because I think even Volkswagen's going through a lot of pain at the minute, and allegedly the new Belgian factory is up for sale, which is its whole EV hub. Um, but they're still investing billions into its combustion engines. Now, me looking at from the way I think we may get jumped on the EV market by hydrogen cars. I think if that technology jumps, or somebody comes up with a retrofit kit, because obviously the thing with a retrofit kit, it's got to be realistic on the weight ratios as well. Peter Peltz, thanks for the podcast. Going to Fiesta. It keeps switching it off when I put the chats on. Thanks for the podcast, Matt. I have to go Fiesta soon. Good information. Maybe catch up in Dubai someday. Yep. Take care, mate. Have a great Fiesta. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things that can influence and change the whole car market with a tech jump, which they're happening. Let's face it. The EV stuff is developing. The second-hand market for EVs is not great, because obviously, would you want a first generation Tesla? Probably not, because although these are expensive bits of kit, it's been like, for me, it's like buying a second-hand mobile phone. I just don't do it. The technology, I think the Porsche, was it another Cayenne? What's the other one? Because they depreciate by something like 70% or something crazy. You know, the electric ones. I mean, don't get me wrong, Porsche's never been famous for retaining its value, but the EV ones seem to be miserably cheap. So would I buy a second-hand Porsche? Probably still no, even if it was cheap, because of the servicing costs and other things that go with it. So I do think we're in a strange environment, because if the technology suddenly jumps with like hydrogen cars or retrofitted EV kits, you could suddenly find a car that's, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years old, that you can rip its failing engine out and drop an EV pack in there, and you're moving most of the problems, the engine. And suddenly you may not need all these new cars. because your technology has just took it to a point where it's easy to take that out, take the engine out, and drop that in. Don't get me wrong, I get the drive system was all different and whatever, but like anything, like when you buy all your bits of technology, all these cables, doesn't mean somebody isn't going to come up with a way of actually joining it to an old gearbox or whatever. Who knows what people are going to get up to, because this is still early days. But one of the things, the reason I took the Toyota I've got is because that already is a reliable car. That's also, I think, the world's #1 brand at the minute. It's got a crazily long warranty. I think the warranty is 17 years if we get serviced by Toyota, something crazy like that, or at least 11 years, I think. So the fact is, that car is not a problem for me. The only problem I've got is probably governments, which will try and influence the changes and talk about this zero carbon and all the other bits and pieces they try and drive, while at the same time, a lot of the stuff around us is not improving. They're just taxes. Taxing everything works. You know, it's like when I see people talk about, oh well, the EV cars, they're cheaper on the road tax, and I'm like, right. That car out there cost me 17,000. The EV Mercedes I looked at was 45,000. I sit and look and go, am I ever going to get a return on investment at that level? Answer's no. Answer's absolutely not. So what's the point? Why do I need to go EV? What's the benefit to me? And I don't think there is enough justification on it at the minute. It's even when people talk about insurance, because I think a Tesla's about £1,000 a year insurance. My 107 in the UK, and this one as well. Well, this one's only about €250 a year. My car in the UK, which is 1 litre, Peugeot 107 or 106, that's about £400 a year. There is no benefit for me to go electric. And the reality is as well, we'll just tax you to death until you go electric. Doesn't seem to be the best way of looking at things in the world. My view is, why aren't they putting an incentive on it? Why has everybody got to be punished all the time when it's stuff that's been forced upon people in the first place? Why aren't we looking at it from a positive aspect? Why has it always got to be a negative? Yeah, that's it. I'd like a Tesla dual motor. Fat drunk vlogs, but they're too expensive. You know, so the problem you've got with the EV stuff, the whole market is inflated at the minute. I'll keep my 2005 Corolla. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. The only reason I got a new car is because the Astra I had, diesel Astra, it was always having problems with the EV. Not the EV, the diesel particle filter. So it was problematic. Another thing created by the government and the car industry. Those filters that were an absolute nightmare. Destroyed the diesel market. So I can't see what the benefit is of me going EV until the point where we're probably going to be retrofitting, and I'll probably end up keeping the same car and just retrofit it, because I'm not trying to impress anybody. I just want to get from A to B. Because the good thing about getting from A to B is, if your car's not desirable to most people, it's less likely to get stolen. Sounds a bit like a lack of interest type thing, but the reality is I'm quite happy being hassle free. Now, if you talk motorbikes, different kettle of fish, but we'll wait till I've bought another motorbike. I've got to sort that out next. That's what I was saying with the way things are for me at the minute. I've got to do my motorbike license, but I've got a Spanish motorcycle license, so I've got to do my is it the A2 in Spain? So I've got to work on that, because the next motorbike I'm getting, I think it's got about 500cc, might be 600cc. I'll have to double check. But the point being is, I want a motorbike for Spain, because even now it's November. What's today's date? It's not telling me. Well, it's late November. It's sunny outside. It's a little bit windy, but it's perfect weather for going out for a bike ride. Roads around here are fantastic. Good access. I mean, from here, I've driven to Valencia, Madrid, Barcelona. They're all hours away, not 5 minutes. But the fact is, the roads are amazing. Scenery is also fantastic when you start going out in Spain. It's amazing. But bearing in mind where we are, part of the reason we chose here is to get to Portugal, France, Germany, Italy. Everything's on our doorstep. So I do need to sort my motorbike license out soon. So I'm gonna have to sit and do an exam on that. But I'm looking forward to getting a motorbike again because I miss it. In the Philippines, I was always out on my motorbike. The freedom you get with a motorbike, you can't sort of explain. But I love being out on the bikes. I think you see more. Fat Drunk, have you moved beyond the Philippines? Are you done trying to live there? I lived there for 8 years. We still got everything there. I've got my motorbikes there. We've got properties there. I can go back at any time. It's just the kids. The reason we moved to Europe was for the kids' education and for them to sort of develop. So my kids are in secondary school at the minute. I'm 9 years in, I'm about done. What's changed over there? I mean, for me, I don't mind the reason I like the motorbikes, the burnout. Yeah, I mean, I like the Philippines because you can move the pace to whatever you want. You can have fast pace, slow pace, do what you want. I like the ability to get in a motorbike and just disappear up, because you can travel around. I like the fact that the different towns, you go to different islands and stuff, that even the transportation's different sometimes. It almost feels like we're in different countries sometimes because things are a bit localized. It's I like the Philippines for that. The downside I find is when you try and get things like car parts or the corruption or mainly the corruption and the poverty can be a bit of a thing because it's everywhere. I mean, the thing is, unless you're living in a subdivision and keeping everything out. Fat Drunk Vlogs. Motorcycles are the only way to go in the Philippines except for rainy days. Yeah, I've been caught in the rain before, and I've got to admit my shirt must have weighed about 4 kilos when I took it off because I was just out on a t-shirt. Absolutely like whoosh, heavy rain. But yeah, I love the Philippines. The ability to travel around it. But the poverty is one of the things that can be difficult there. I mean, nobody really talks about the mortality rate, but there's a lot of people I know that aren't there anymore. I mean, way more than I've experienced in Europe. And it's not all old age, kids dying, all sorts of stuff going on. Because even like dengue, I mean, I had dengue myself, which is a bit like malaria. There's a lot of stuff that kills people a lot of the time. But at the same time, I still love the country. I still love the experiences there. I like travelling around it. Yeah, I won't knock it, even with the negative stuff, because I've got to admit, I do find the UK a very nanny state, which for me is more of an issue than Fat Drunk Vlogs. Poverty and skin tax, roses off the balloon. Yes, even when you go to a museum, there could be like, oh, it's 30 pesos to get in, but if you're a foreigner, it's 100. Yeah, I could get it. I mean, I get it but it is a bit frustrating because in Spain, if you're a resident in this area, you can get a bus pass. I think the bus pass, I don't know if they've changed it now, but it was €7 and that's it. You never have to pay for a bus trip ever again. But the tourists are paying what, 130 per ride. So going into town and back is like 260. So if you're a long-term resident, you don't pay anything. So I get it from both sides because I'm a long-term resident. But do I have a bus pass? The answer is no. But my missus does. That's why she says I don't want to learn to drive because I can use the bus. It's better. No headaches of parking, etc., etc. So even though she's got a brand new car sat out there, still not keen on learning to drive it. Yeah, I mean that's me nearly out of all my comment points today. I've got one left, which is investments. Is it worth it? Fat Drunk Vlogs. Everyone raves about Spain. You pick the hot spots. Hang on a minute. Switch it off. As soon as it disappears on the screen, I might have to alter it, see how we can alter this. Everyone raves about Spain. You pick the hot spots while they are good. See, this is the thing. When Brexit happened, people were so negative on Spain, as particularly the UK media, as if Spain was going to die a death. Reality is, there's a lot of money coming from Northern Europe. There's a lot of people from the Netherlands, all Scandinavians, and it's the whole of Europe. A lot of them come here. There's a lot of Russians here. There's a lot of Ukrainians here. I don't think this will change unless we start getting all these lovely carbon taxes and stuff that the governments want to do to us. But at that point, I've got to say, one of the things that have been going through my mind is what's worth living. Because traveling is one of the most important things for me. If you take that from people, it's not a good thing. So I can see this being here. I mean, this has survived from the 80s. Where I live as well can't get any bigger. It's literally impossible. We have sand dunes north and south of us, and we have a eco lake to the left and the sea to the right. This can't get any bigger. It's all protected. All this land around us protected. So the only land that's available is the land we're sitting on. I'm not saying it's equivalent to Hong Kong because that's a little bit different, but the fact is the land here is limited and it's already constructed on. So the only way to build a new house here is buy an old house, knock it down, and maybe put up an apartment block. So I can't see that progressing much further than what it is now, which is a bit of its charm, to be fair, because it's Torrevieja, which is just to the south of us, is a lot busier than we are. Guadamar is the other side, and Guadamar's probably about twice as busy as we are. And it's more like a village within a town here, because a lot of the tourists are not here all year round. There's like maybe, I don't know, 200, 300 people here all the time. Which means you've got that small village community within a bigger community. So the bigger community, because of all these extra buildings, etc., generate a lot more tax revenue. Hence, we have a lot of facilities in the area that, funny enough, I was saying this to my wife yesterday. It's strange in that concept, because if I think of the UK and some of the seaside towns, whatever, and how deprived and depressing they are, this is a bit of a unique scenario because there's money here. Now, you're probably right. If this ends up like the old Brighton, the UK, it used to be like I think a Victorian. I'm not sure it was Edwardian, but I think in the Victorian times it was big for its promenade, and it was a big hotspot. And then it's died a death because people stopped going there. But then again, I haven't been recently because obviously London's changed, which means a lot of people moving out of London. So looking at Farage at, was it Clacton-on-Sea, there's probably been cash being injected into areas as people move out of London. So, yeah, everything's evolving. Everything's evolving. But one of the things that concerns me about the UK is it doesn't seem to be evolving its industries as fast as I would like. Spain's got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of its businesses are quite small as well, so I do think it's got more of an edge on that sense because a lot of them are SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, and it has a lot of things that protect local businesses because they have like there's like local shop community things, and yeah, I think they're a bit more proactive here. I mean, I looked at what the Labour government's doing in the UK about the central government just sort of dictating things to the local governments, which also then puts the strain on the local communities and sort of saying, don't give a damn what you think, we're doing it anyway. And that stuff bothers me because it's not how things should be run. These people are supposed to be elected officials. If they're wandering around like dictators, it doesn't benefit anybody. It won't benefit them long term because people have very long memories. I remember, I think it was British Telecom, the chief exec on British Telecom after the privatisation and the breaking of it, same with British Gas, is people remembered the bad years when it was only BT, only British Gas. And when you're trying to sell the internet services, power services, trying to get them back as a gas customer, etc., people remember like 15 years ago when they were treated like scum because these guys had the monopoly. And they said, don't matter what you do, people will still quote from 10 years ago, you did this to me, and they don't forget. That was, I suppose, a bit like me with Orange here. Orange got me a bad contract. They gave me internet that they didn't even have. And then they tried to bill me for a phone because it was like part of a package. But then you go, I've returned the internet because you, after 4 months, because you're billing me every month, you haven't installed it yet. Because they couldn't install it. It was on the Telefonica network, and for whatever reason, there seemed to be a bit of a challenge between Telefonica and Orange. I was being stuck with, well, I couldn't get internet in my house that I'm paying for, and then they're going, well, you've got a mobile phone. I'm going, yeah, well, the mobile phone is part of this package. There's your phone back, there's your internet. Oh, no, you've got to keep the mobile phone contract. Because they were they knew they couldn't do the internet, so they tried to give me a phone I didn't even want. And that went on for about 8-9 months. So I will never be an Orange customer, that's for sure. But anyway, guys, I'm going to cut it off now because this is probably the longest video I've done. I think we covered a lot of topics. If there's anything you want to cover in the future or whatever, just put it in the comments after the live stream, and I'll pick them up for the next one. Because I'm going to start doing these weekly. You know, it does seem there's a fair bit of interest on them. But happy to cover most topics. But put them in the comments because I do pick up the comments afterwards. PB Hunters, another excellent live match, same time next week. Yeah, it'll be 10 or 11 o'clock. It should have been 10 o'clock, but it was 11 o'clock Spain because I'm an hour ahead here. But I was late anyway because I got out of bed late today. But please put comments in there because I may have to research them as well. So if you want to know something or want to talk about something specifically, happy to go over it. Same as if anybody actually wants to be on the podcast itself. It'll involve me having a bit more of a setup because at the moment I'm on the iPad. But the funny thing is, I've actually got a little mixing desk here now as well. I'll try not to pull the cables out. So I can actually, we've got 2 mics set up. We haven't even tested the desk yet because got the desk a bit because obviously my son's into music, so the only thing we're missing out there at the moment is a drum kit, which I was gonna get, but I'm thinking I'm gonna leave it for another couple of months because I need to sort some space out for it. Cause we've got a 3D, we have. There's a 3D printer out there as well that we haven't used much. So I've got to relocate some stuff to make some more space so we can get the band set up. That's what I thought. Get the sound set up, because my son and his mate can do some of the audio for the YouTube videos, so I don't have to worry about the not data protection. What was it? The copyright, because we produce our own music and stuff. Then obviously it's a little bit easier, because a lot of the videos out there are 3 minutes long. You know, the audio. But it's like last night we went out for the Christmas lights in Torrebecca. I think the video is over 30 odd minutes long, but I don't need to speak on it because it's just driving through, seeing the lights. So it's quite a long audio piece. So yeah, it's a few bits and pieces going on anyway. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed it, please like, please share, and please subscribe. Have a great weekend.